Hey, Turning Dirt and Wrenches here, and today I want to show you what is probably the oldest piece of equipment on our farm that is still working and doing its job. This is a International manure spreader. I think it's a 12A, but I'm not positive on that. And this belonged to my great grandfather. It was probably bought in the 20s or earlier, I would guess. And it actually sat outside. I guess it's still sitting outside, but it sat outside in the woods for years and years, probably 30 plus, maybe even more than that. And when I was a teenager, I convinced my grandpa, who had it at that time, that to let me pull it out of the woods and try to fix it. And he said, well, I'll tell you what, you can do that as long as it gets fixed and doesn't just sit all over the yard or something. So I got it fixed. This was one of my really early projects. We have cows and did have some horses, and this came in real handy for spreading the manure, and it still does spread manure. It needs a shed like a lot of this equipment, but that should be coming here shortly. But it survived for that long outside. I think it'll survive a few more days. But we just got a plywood floor. I think it did have a steel floor, and that was all shot, and then we just took it out and I put a piece of plywood in there, a little piece of belting up there, and treated the floor. And I usually will spray some motor oil on it when we're done. Most of our spreading is done in the winter. We just kind of clean out the barn as we go, fill it with pitchforks. But it's real simple. It's just got these chain right here hooked to a lever that fits down on that big sprocket. So if you engage it, that slides down and that fits on that sprocket, and now you're engaged. You're going to run the spreader part on the back. Pull it back and it's disengaged, and you got your auger and whatever you call this, just an agitator. And as you can see, this is an original point. It's some kind of probably wrought iron type spike, and all I could think of to get it going at the time was some carriage bolts and nuts, and they are not near as strong as the old ones. So you can see some of those are bent, some of them have broke off, because I did have them all repaired. So now that I've got a little more knowledge, I think I'd make something a little more substantial to fit that in. And now, so this turns the opposite direction. When you start spreading, your manure is probably going to be fairly high, and you don't want to feed a whole bunch onto this or it'll overload it. So this turns this way and actually throws it forward and makes a consistent, layer of manure that's about that tall coming onto your beater. That's what this is, a beater, and this is a spreader. And then that beats it up, throws it onto here, and this flings it out. And then this is the apron chain or conveyor chain that it slowly moves back and brings manure into the back. And that is adjustable. It actually has a ratchet that makes it work, and you can adjust how fast it goes back with this lever. You can see you got all these different notches, and this might be a little bit harder to see. Well, maybe not. So you got these cams. There's one there, there's three of them, there's one there, and then you got this ball right here that rides on them, and that is connected. You're probably not going to be able to see it. There's this little latch right here, which is basically just like what's inside a ratchet wrench, and just pretend this is a big ratchet. And then there's a couple more back here that keep it from going backwards. But basically, as the wheel turns, that goes up and down as these cams come around, and every time it goes up, it moves it a little bit and a little bit more. And so basically, it's actually engaged right now. I know Dad used it last. Maybe I used it last. It was last winter, I don't remember. This is supposed to be up to be disengaged. I guess it doesn't really matter if it was engaged. And so basically how it adjusts it is it just controls how far down this is. So it controls how much it moves. You know, if it's only moves down this far, it just moves a little bit. And if it's down here, it moves a lot. And that's how the apron chain works. You got the big old steel wheels, no flat tires here. And the steel wheels up here. This was originally horse-drawn. As you can see, still got the seat on it. And I always thought it was kind of neat. So you got the seat, place for your feet. And then right here, I think this would have been maybe like where you put, I don't know if you had like a little whip or something, or maybe it's just a toolbox. You don't really want to whip your horses, but I don't know. All the horses were long, long gone. That was all my great-grandfathers before I was around. And this would have had a DoubleTree on it, but instead it's got a big 4x4 and just a pan that you can quickly drop into whatever you're working on, whatever you want to pull it with. But there really wasn't much that I did to this. I did the floor. They had used it with a loader at one point, and someone didn't have it raised quite high enough, as you can see. And that was long before my time. That's probably what happened to that lever. It's just, you know, it's more, what do they call that? Ergonomic. You know, I got it offset or something. I don't know. But it's supposed to be straight like that, but it still works. So I did the floor, and I greased everything. And I got a new drive chain for that main drive chain. The other drive chain for the spreader part over here, that little bitty chain on the back. That one is actually the one that was on it. It's just been oiled. And this apron chain I salvaged from another manure spreader like this that was out in the woods at someone else's place. And just greased it. Everything has grease zerks on it. I greased it. I poured a bunch of oil over that thing, got it all lubed up, everything loosened up after you started getting grease in it. It was just amazing. So this is probably close to 100 years old, if not already. And it still goes out and spreads the pooey. Helps the pastures grow and the hayfield grow. Probably the only time that we've ever had trouble with it is when it starts getting really cold. If it's sitting on like some hay, like it's parked inside the barn or something, and there happens to be enough frost at night, some of the hay, like some of the loose hay on the barn floor, will freeze to these steel wheels. And then when you go out and you start spreading, when that clump of hay that's frozen comes around to the bottom, it'll all of a sudden just start sliding on it, and it'll stop spreading. And then, I mean, you just got to come out and maybe tap on the clump a little bit and it'll come off. But most of the time it comes off on its own. I think that's only happened maybe a half dozen times or something over all these years that we've used it. Just certain conditions, and if it's not parked, if it's just parked on dirt, it doesn't matter. But there it is, the probably the oldest piece of equipment on the farm that is also a four generation manure spreader. I'm sure this won't get near as much interest as the M, but this was one of my first projects, so this is what started it all. Grandpa did not know what he had unleashed, but there you go. That's an old International manure spreader, still getting it done. Thanks for watching.